Got a long weekend, so now we get to do a long cook. And I ask you guys, hey, what should I be cooking on this weekend? Should I do a pork shoulder or brisket? Everybody voted, had a chance, and by an overwhelming majority, over 60% of the people said it's brisket time. So that's what we're going to be doing this weekend is cooking a brisket. Now, I'm no expert at this. As a matter of fact, I've cooked less than 10 in my whole life. But I want to see how it would try out. And decided this time that I'm going to go ahead and use some of the Goldie's brisket rub and try the Goldie's method for cooking brisket. This basically means that we're going to leave the brisket unwrapped for the duration of the cook and only wrap it when we're in the rest period, which is, probably about a good 8 hours or so after the cook. So that's what we're going to try to do today. So ordered their rub off the internet, and you can look and see the ingredients and everything, and these guys are clearly proud of their product. #1 in Texas, so let's see if we can bring that Texas love all the way up here to Ohio and see how it translates up in my backyard. Whenever I'm trying out a new rub, I always like to see how it compares to some of the stuff I'm already familiar with. And so here, where I'm just putting down first Killer Hog's AP rub, and then right next to that, I'm putting down the Chud rub. And then finally, we're just going to put down this Goldie's brisket rub and see how everything compares. And when you take a look at it, you can see that the AP rub's nice and fine granules. The Chud rub also a little bit more coarse, but has a more of a reddish color to it. And then finally, what you can remember from the Goldie's rub is it's more yellow, but it's probably the coarsest grind of them all. As I mentioned, I'm no real expert at trimming briskets or even cooking briskets, but I do know to kind of get rid of the big piece here. I think that's called the decal. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that piece. We're not getting rid of it, actually. We're saving it for tallow. That's going to be, kind of the second part of my video here. But we're going to get this off, and then anything that looks kind of floppy or is going to just not end up cooking too well, it's going to end up burning up into the cook. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off as well, and I'll put that in my trim pile, and I'm going to use whatever I can to make some tallow here alongside of my brisket. Yeah, this floppy piece is really bugging me. I've never really seen something like this before. I guess it's part of the mohawk or something, I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and trim this off too, because I really don't know what to do with it, and I don't think it's going to make it through the cook. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this as well. In a couple videos I've watched, I've seen that Johnny likes to put warm water down as kind of the binder for the rub, and so I'm going ahead and just get a little bit of warm water in my bottle here and just get that going, and then I'm just going to lay down this rub. We're going to put it on both sides and just make sure that we get everything evened up. We're going to put rub on all sides and get good coverage across this brisket, so hopefully we'll develop a nice bark. So I got this brisket from Costco, and lately Costco has only been carrying choice briskets, but I was surprised when I went in this time and they had some prime briskets and prices weren't too unreasonable. So I was able to find a good prime brisket in there for, I guess it was like $2.99 a pound or something like that. So really good prices on the brisket, at least for my area, and glad to be able to cook a prime brisket for the first time. So hey, let's hope this turns out really well. Do you ever wonder what happens when you put wet wood in a fire? Well, I'm guessing these little bubbles here is the moisture trying to get out of this wood before it gets burnt up. Once the pit's up to temp, 275 degrees for today, I'm going to go ahead and put the brisket on. We'll set it in there pretty close to the smokestack. I mean, I don't know that it matters a ton, but we'll go ahead and set it in here and get everything going. I do want to draw your attention to something. And maybe I'll replay this for a second, but this was a mistake that I made, or something I just really didn't want to have happen. When I put the brisket in, If you notice, I actually put this in fat side up. Now I know it's a huge debate all over the message boards and everything, but for the purpose of this cook and for my cooker, I think fat side down works pretty good for this, just because of where the heat's coming from and wanting to protect the meat a little bit from the heat which might be coming from below. Because I've noticed when I've cooked biscuits and whatever, that the bottom gets a little bit more done than the top. And so you'll notice here, yep, definitely got fat side up. And I noticed this about an hour into the cook, and I wanted to flip it around, and hopefully it doesn't really mess up the cook too much, but this was something I didn't want to have happen. Now, one of the cool things about doing brisket, and when all these people tell you not to throw away the trimmings, today I'm finally actually going to use those trimmings for something. We're going to cut these trimmings up, and we're going to make some tallow. So all you really have to do here is get the fat, everything that you use, the decal, all that stuff that people have said isn't going to render down in the cook. Well, it's not entirely true. It's just not going to render fast enough for your brisket. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take all those fat pieces and chop them all up into smaller pieces, maybe about 1 inch or so big. That way the fire, it can kind of work its way down a little bit. Put them all into a little aluminum container, kind of like so. And we're just going to take this and put it on the fire right alongside, put inside the smoker, right alongside our brisket. That way, when we've got a chance to cook our fat and make some tallow right alongside of our brisket as it's cooking, better use of space, and also just a better use of all of this product that we bought. 2 hours in, just over 250. Starting to get a little coloring here after my steak. Tallow's coming along. After a few hours, when I came back to check on the meat a little bit, noticed that the tallow was really starting to get some liquid in the bottom, and that's exactly what we want. That fat has rendered down, and now we've got a chance to get some of that liquid out. That liquid is that liquid gold that we really, really want. So what we need here in order to kind of finalize our tallow making process is, something that will help filter out and stop the small particles from getting into your jar, and a mason jar, or just some kind of container that can hold hot liquid. I use a mason jar, and I've got this little filter thing here I bought off Amazon to kind of really help get the tallow into the jar and get it pretty clean. Some people use paper towels, but whatever you use, you can just go ahead and pour the liquid inside of your jar through this filter, this medium, and that way you got yourself a nice clean jar of tallow. All right, just like that, we've got some pretty good tallow already made, purified a bit. See if you guys can see that. And we're not done yet with those fat pieces. I mean, we can just put that back on and get some more liquid out of it, and just keep on going until you're done. You could just have dried, shriveled up little pieces inside of your container. We're about 5 hours into the cook at this point, and so I'm just checking to see that the bark's coming along and making sure that we're not really getting any liquid pooling on top. I've seen people, just kind of tip this over, and so that's what I'm trying to do if I see any liquid forming. But everything seems to be coming along. The color looks really nice relative to what I've seen before in brisket, so I'm pretty excited about where the cook is now. Now it's getting pretty late. We're actually looking at the brisket kind of about 8 hours into the cook here, and when I'm probing it, I'm just probing to see how it feels going in, and also just as a side note, checking temperature. And when I put the probe in here, everything felt great. It just went in so easy and came out. So pulled it, and now we're just going to let it sit on the kitchen counter here for a little bit of time, probably about an hour or so, just to kind of get the temperature down before I wrap it. Now, after about 8 hours in my warming drawer, wrapped, the brisket is ready to be unveiled. And so we're just going to kind of carefully try and pull it out of this foil and see what we have. Well, it's coming to that moment of truth, that time where I see whether or not I spent all my time and my money wisely. Am I going to be able to get invited back to the cookout? Can I show up with this respectable dish? Hold on. Oh, it's going through really nice. This is pretty good. Oh, this is looking pretty good. Let me see what this actually looks like. It feels really nice. Let's see what we have here. As we open this up, I notice the juice is in the meat and not on the board. That's great. The smell is amazing, and this Goldie's brisket rub worked out really well. Brisket was not too salty, and the bark is phenomenal. I tried my hardest to keep this at 275, and it was in the smoker for 8.5 hours. I did flip the brisket to the fat side down an hour into the cook, but everything else went well for me. I'm definitely taking this to the cookout. Well, you made it to the end. You might make it to the end of another one of my videos. Why don't you check one of those out below? Take it easy.